All right, man. So, Quantum Leap, right? So, as I
Yeah,
said before, I have a reason now to jump into the original series because yeah, believe it or not, never watched the original. I knew of its
right.
existence. I just never took the time to watch it, right? But I know that it is, a great, masterful, sci-fi series. You know, what I
Yeah,
mean, very influential, if you will. Scott Bakula. I mean, like
right.
his name became legendary because of this show, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
see, entry the grapevine about this, this revival series, right? But I'm glad, first of all, that it's not a reboot, right? So it's a continuation of the original series. I'm really curious to hear how it is and what's going on story wise. So yeah, Ricardo, take it away. Series premiere, Quantum Leap.
Yeah. I thought this premiere was not bad. Yeah.
Oh,
So
not
Quantum
bad.
Leap.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, no, Quantum Leap. So Quantum Leap is one of these franchises that yeah, it was on my quote unquote short list of stuff you could bring back and could totally work if you bring back. Right. It's just how well you could do it because it's so relatively easy to pull from. Um, in its own conceit. Now you could say you could build from it and do a bunch of ideas and the last 30 years of material could make it work for what it is. But I'll say because it's on NBC, unfortunately, it feels a bit cheap. Feel a little
Oh
cheap at
Lord.
parts. You could tell they kind of cut in some corners. It's a pilot, so I'm giving it a slide. Some of the dialogue could use some punching up. Uh, so, but I like that it's a sequel, and then they already start building a really interesting mystery involving one of the older characters, Al, from the original show. His daughter is relevant to the narrative, and so how it goes is that it's basically Ben Song is the main character. He decides to like he having a party in the beginning, they're going normal, and he decides to leap. Like he just got a message from somebody involved in some crisis, and he leaps, and not even his presumably fiance knows what's going on, and they put in a bunch of code, and they do a bunch of stuff that just mysterious, and they don't know why he leap. And because when you leap, well, they kind of change up the rules of how leaping works. When you leap, um, he lost his memory, so he doesn't even know why he leaped. Yeah, but it's a big mystery at the heart of that. And then they basically well established that what he's leaping to is the timeline changes by Sam Beckett, played by Scott Bakula. So Scott Bakula's character, his actions are still relevant.
All
I
right, all
like
right.
I like that. That's pretty interesting because at the time of this recording, well, Sunday, this will be the day before um tomorrow's episode, is episode 2 involving I forget the name of the rocket in 2004. He's an astronaut or leaps into an astronaut, right? But they mention a character who is a baby in the Scott Bakula show. That means that person wouldn't have been born if it wasn't for Scott Bakula's actions. That's pretty interesting. I like that. Um, I'll say the big one weakness of the show. So uh, the two main leads, because they're supposed to be in love. I think they're supposed to be getting married. Well, they're supposed to be engaged at the point in time. Uh, they don't really have particularly good chemistry, right? Pretty weak in my opinion. But there's a new person in the show who's I think, well, as far as I know, both the actor and the character is non-binary, and this is the lead scientist character. Uh, that person is actually really funny and engaging, and to me, that person, should be the hologram person. Right? Have all the charisma and thing, and yet they have the woman being the hologram person. I was like, well, she just kind of boring though, and she not really bringing anything. But the non-binary character Ian, who's like a major scientist person, that to me is the character who should be. Because that character, they're telling all the jokes and actually being charismatic and funny, and would be the perfect person for all the historical and social commentary quips, like in my opinion. Because that's the whole thing with the show. Like, yeah, it was like, let's admit it, Quantum Leap was the original woke sci-fi. Like everything was just tutting people about, hey, look how racist this was, and look how
Mm.
sexist that was. And then Sam himself had to go through, like he's presumably a white guy, right? So he had to go through these things, right? He had to go into the body of a woman, or he had to go into the body of a black man, or something like that, right? That was the show. Like that is straight up the show. Ziggy was the woke computer, right? This shitty thing happened in the past. I wanted to change it. That's the show. Great idea, and you could build it from. So far we haven't seen a new intro or update to the theme song. As far as I know, hopefully you'll get this, but I didn't see anything. I mean, it's a pilot, so I didn't really expect them to really put it in. But Quantum Leap's theme song is a classic, man. You had to bring that back. Um, Ernie Hudson is playing the head of the scientist military team guy. He's like a big military guy back in Vietnam, and then he had to like address. He's like in charge of stuff now. Study that Ernie Hudson is older than the character he plays, and the character is supposed to be like 72.
Oh, he's
Like,
that old? Okay.
Yeah, Ernie Hudson is 76 years old. Study that though. Like, that's insane. I didn't know he was that old. Like, wow. Like, Ernie Hudson, boy, you're really you're doing the black don't crack thing, boy. Like, you really live it up to that stereotype, boy. Yeah, but he's pretty good as well. He plays like a nice anchor character for the he plays a nice decent anchor character for the crew. Ben, main guy who his wife was the one who it's not saying wife, but like fiance. She was the one who was supposed to do the leaping. Because the big mystery of the storyline is that it was supposed to like get back Sam because Sam never went home, right? In the original series. As far as they know, he never showed up. But you see, that statement we're not sure because he could have gone home by the wrong timeline or something like that. And whatever going on with Al's daughter, because Al's daughter, Ben was working with, again, I just kind of selling out the first episode of what going on, what mysteries to set up. She seems to be at the core of this. So, like, it's implied that there's some kind of timeline shenanigans going on, maybe or maybe not. And yeah, that's about it. That's our first episode. It's not bad. As I said, the only major noticeable thing is that it is feeling a little on the cheap end of things. Like, I really felt, and then again, it's a pilot, but it's a pilot, But yeah, I actually interested in this. I really, really want to see what they're gonna do with it and make it work. Yeah, solid premiere. I strongly recommend it. I'm a big fan of the original series. I wasn't a super fan or anything like that. I don't know was the distinction between if it was like mental leaping or physical leaping or anything like that. Like some super nerds could tell you that, right? In fact, there's a great video by Alison Prigler about that. But yeah, that's about it. It's just a solid, decent enough premiere in my opinion. The main character Ben Song is a good charismatic lead. He works. It's just I find the chemistry between him and the fiance just doesn't work all that well, to be honest. And I really felt the Ian character should be the hologram person talking to him and giving him information and telling the jokes and doing the social commentary and that kind of stuff. That's how I always felt about it. Yeah, solid premiere. That's nothing else to say. Just a decent enough first episode. I recommend it.
All right, so I take it that I have to in my case, since I have never seen Quantum Leap, that means that I have to watch all 5 seasons before jumping.
Well, yeah, that's the problem. I think it is a little dependent on that, to be honest. Like you're not super dependent because it's tell its story on its own. It'll do the whole filling in stuff. It's like, hey, yeah, Sam did this, or Sam had to do that, or Al was relevant to this, or that or the other, and whatnot. And that's about it. Because the first episode just deals with a simple conceit. He jumps into someone, but there's a twist with that person he jumps into. Because he had to save the life of somebody. Again, normal Ziggy stuff, telling you what to do. But the big twist of the episode, I don't want to sell out the twist because it's actually a pretty decent twist of who he jumped into. And why it's so confusing to figure out why they can get information on that person because it's a good twist. But that is about it. And then when they reveal everything, I was like, all right, that's not that bad. And they make it work as a first episode for what it was. Yeah, that's about it. It does kind of rely on you knowing the original Quantum Leap. Not super. Again, I'm not a super fan. I don't remember like big intricate details, but I remember like stuff about the show is like, oh yeah, right, this was a thing and that was a relevant concept and blah 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 blah. But to me, once you know the basic conceit of the original Quantum Leap and you know that Sam's actions feed into this, I think that is pretty much what you need to know. But yeah, I just recommend you watch the original Quantum Leap because it was a good show.
All right, I will.
Yeah.
So let's leap from NBC now to ABC. So Ricardo, again,
nice transition.
Thank you. Round of applause. I'm gonna pat myself on the back, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So you will talk about the season 2 premiere of Abbott Elementary, which is a show that I need to jump on because I know how highly you praise the first season, man. So yeah season 2.
Yeah. So look, Quinta B. riding high right now. She got the Emmy for best writing. Cheryl Lee Ralph got the Emmy for Best Supporting Actress. She totally deserved it.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, she totally deserved it because she is my favorite character in that show. And yeah, they follow it up, right? So the finale is they end the finale on a high where oh gosh, I forget the character. Main character, I forget her name.
Janine. I just read it off here.
Yeah, right. So Janine, right. So Janine, she breaks up with a really bum of a boyfriend, Tariq. And Then what also they do is they got a lot of money. They was applying for a grant, and they were really cynical about getting this grant because it's the Philly education system is real trash, and the whole thing is Janine trying to like try her best and because she don't have Tariq in her life anymore. Because Tariq, even though he was a real bum, she was in her life. He was in her life for such a long time that he was just a staple, and she treated him like that. And that was the emotional arc she was going through. And him leaving now, she don't know what to do. And it's not to say that she can't necessarily cope from a direct standpoint, but just the mere fact that he's just not there. And she didn't really adjusted that too well. And well, the episode hinges on her not being able to pay rent. So even though Tariq was kind of a bum, he used to make up the 20% to pay rent, right? 20%. They were sharing 80-20. It's sad. And
Wow,
and then but she basically she can't make the rent, and it's less about her not being able to make it, but more like she just going through this. She have no support, she don't feel she have any support. She thinks she above board, and she kind of isn't. And it's just the little small things of not being the help. And then the context of the episode is that they have the money now, and Shirley, Ralph's character now, has to compensate for children who are disabled, right, to come in. So she got a ramp built for the wheelchair kid. She knows a kid is coming in with a wheelchair. She got the ramp built, but she couldn't get the desk for the child. And that was a whole thing throughout the episode of her trying to sort that out. And then oh gosh, everybody hates Chris, right?
Of course, yeah, Tyler himself.
Yeah, right. I forget the character's name, but he now is a permanent teacher at the thing. He's no longer a sub. He has a permanent job. He's teaching, I think first graders, and his whole thing was that he have to have it perfect because he just now started to hit him how really shitty the real world is when it comes to teachers and education and the education system, and his meticulous approach to the world is going to crack immediately once he apply it to the world. He have all his perfect plans and matched out. And yeah, Shirley Ralph kind of tell him, yeah, well, what is happening when one of the children have a nosebleed? And one of the children, you only thinking about the education part, but like it's a holism that you have to take into account. And there are all kind of extra factors. And, it's her giving him advice throughout the episode. And yeah, then the episode is just the other, I forget the white teacher's name. She also has to encompass 10 extra students. Right, and all of them is gifted students. There's all these little real world things that are hitting them all at the same time. Even though they get the grant and the money, they're still, struggling and have all these extra problems. As there more money, more problems, right? And then the last conceit was that Janine, now she decided what she did. She made a mistake of setting up the wrong date for somebody who was supposed to come through in the episode. So they got the Philly mascot for the Philadelphia Flyers, Gritty. Which is a really funny, like, real world bit on its own. But
right.
In Philadelphia, he's beloved. He's a beloved mascot. Even though this mascot makes no sense and has no logic to it, it's a very beloved mascot and massively popular. And like Chris's character, because he's the outer town guy, he just say you don't get Gritty. And the whole audience turns on him, which is really a great little small moment. It's like, yeah, well, you don't get about Gritty. But if you think about it, it's only something that is such an idiosyncratic Philly thing there. They make it work. It's like it's all these nice little bits, and then the ending of the episode is quite touching because everything comes together. I don't want to spoil it, but I think I could spoil it. His character, he gets the desk from the storage shelf because the Shirley Ralph's character, she couldn't get the desk, and she thought she failed the student effectively, and then he did some digging when he asked the janitor, and he's like, oh yeah, we might have thrown away some of those desks for disabled students because disabled students hardly come in, but when they come in, you get a chance to come through. And that was the episode. Like, he found the desk for her and get the desk for the student. And then we saw more disabled students coming in the school because the white guy, he was in South America and he was learning ESL. So when at the end of the episode, you see him speaking in ESL for the deaf students. And it's all these little small things. Excellent writing. This is why the show works. It's Quinta B deserves her Emmy for it because it's all these little small world building thing that builds up the episode that is, again, legitimately funny and charming, and is a show that's actually given me hope for the future. It's an excellent show. So yeah, solid premiere. I really, really enjoyed the premiere for this episode. Great premiere. Funny, it works. A bunch of great beats. They're doing The Office, but it's a little bit of Scrubs, but with teachers. They're doing it's the same thing. they change the conceit, but they make it really work. A great premiere. Again, get on the show, please. It's a great show.
I will, bro.
I have no problem. I have no problem shilling for the show because the show is just that good and excellent in my opinion. So yeah,
like I want to put this in my best stuff for the year, Jared. Like I have like a little spot for it, you know.
Yeah, I totally recommend it. And there's more power to Quinta Brunson in my opinion.
I mean, she. Well, I mean, I do have to tell her, but yeah, I mean, she'll just keep doing her thing, man. She really fine. The show moving fine on all cylinders now. They're really getting into their own in terms of like what the beats are and what the character beats are and how to hit from here to here and move from this to this. And it's like still really funny and still really works. And again, why it works is that it plays with the same like speed, but with none of the cynicism. Like a lot of people associate, unfortunately, as my cynical ass generation who associate cynicism and meanness with humor. Right, and this show doesn't do that at all. Like it just balances out really, really well. There's one character that a couple characters I should say, that leans into that, meanness, but they frame it within the context of the storyline, and it will build it excellently, in my opinion. So yeah. Again, we'll talk about it when we get to the finale. I'll be talking about it, but yeah, this was excellent, solid for me. All right, nice.
Yeah.
So speaking of premiere now, let's head over to Disney Plus now. So let's talk about Andor, right?
Yeah.
So before we begin, we have to talk about Rogue One, right? That was one of the the anthology Star Wars films that we talked about here, right? And back then, we enjoyed it for what it was, right? But like, look, of course, going into Andor, I mean, it makes perfect sense to recap that show, right? And I would say that 6 years from since it was released, it still holds up, right? The deep fakes for Peter Cushing and especially Carrie Fisher's characters, though, like at least with Cushing, the excuse they could get away with is right. Well, we're using shadow, right? But when it was Carrie Fisher, boy, and that light was on her face, but it was like, jeez, boy, and this is how they end the show too. I was like, jeez.
I mean, it's so fascinating that they just double and triple down on this stuff in the weird way. Like I kind of get why they're doing it, because like it kind of forcing their hand to do the CG stuff as in complete replacement now. Like, okay, so before we mention Andor, this is another, very insidious little trend that occurring. So somebody made the joke that, in the news, that James Earl Jones has officially retired himself as the voice of Darth Vader. And it's all...
I literally saw that, like, before we met up online.
Right.
I just went on Facebook just for a second.
I read that a couple of days ago. And somebody made the joke, he's more man than machine now, which is like, that's a pretty good joke, though. He's more he's more machine than man.
More machine than man, right?
Right, that's a funny joke. I like that. But it is a very insidious trend, because this whole digitizing of people thing that Disney seem to be pushing for, and the reason why they're pushing for it so hard is because they wanted to really think or push it in that conceit now. But we'll talk about why does that Andor work so well is because of that shit now. But I forget the actual line I'm thinking I was going for. But the point is that, but sets are sets. You can't get wrong sets. You can't get wrong real world stuff. You can't get wrong actual actors at the end of the day. And in Rogue One, because he was pushing that shit so hard, that's the only thing that really pulled it down for me. That and some of the fan service. Like, some of the fan service was kind of bad, but others was...
Yeah, well, I would say, looking at it now, yes, some of the fan service, was unwarranted. It just didn't need it.
And there's only really one scene that was kind of bad, but to me it was still, because it was a lightsaber scene. You know what the scene is.
Of course. I
give it a
classic hallway scene, right?
Because exactly. But the other scene, which is a total fan service scene, I thought totally worked, which is the actual Battle of Scarif itself. I really like the Battle of Scarif. I thought they nailed that shit completely. Like, it's like, oh, this is real hard though. Like, they make it work though. So I couldn't be mad at any of it though. Yeah, but talk about it.
Well, back to Rogue One, right? Rogue One, sorry. But really what made it work is that it's almost like, the creative team behind Rogue One look at the Star Wars logo and say, you know what? All these Star Wars movies was usually about adventure and romance and stuff like that. We just make a war film out of this. So they just more or less like circle the war in Star Wars like about 3-4 times and scratch off S. So it literally is a war film. And when I was watching this over, I was like, I was reminded of how much it feels like a war film.
Yeah.
Yes, admittedly, you could tell they pull from various war films. I'm not gonna say which ones, but yeah, you could feel the influences of classic war films in this, and it worked, right? But in the process of that, yes, we introducing a whole bunch of new characters. So one of them was actually Cassian Andor, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean he actually dies. Well, actually, the death scene involving him and Felicity Jones' character is
Yeah.
pretty
Janusu. Yeah.
yeah, generoso, right? Yeah, pretty. I wouldn't say tear-jerking, but almost close to it though.
Yeah.
It's
It's a
just
good
so
scene. Yeah.
tragic, but it works, right? But yeah, it was that balancing act of pretty much introducing new characters in to more or less answer a particular to more or less fill a particular plot hole from the fourth movie, right? Of
Right.
course, which
Right.
is how did that star blew up so easy. That's the point of it, right?
Right.
So
Right.
take from it what you will, but I think that as far as like it being a war film and it being different, so to speak, from the other films thus far, yeah, Rogue One totally works, man. And I see that this is what they're trying to do here clearly with Andor,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
what Andor is in a nutshell, it centers on the early days of Cassian Andor, right? This is
Right.
before he joined the rebellion himself,
Yeah.
right?
So
So
it's about 5 years before Rogue One.
right, 5 years, yes.
Mhm.
Right. So we see him on this planet. He is looking for his sister who's gone missing. In
Yeah.
the process, he runs into these two guards who can intimidate him and one thing leads to the next, and well, he ends up killing him. He ends up shooting them now. So now
Right.
he's pretty much wanted now.
Yeah.
So he's on the run.
He accidentally kills one and then outright murders the second one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it kind of
Again.
reminds me of
Right.
of like an early scene in Rogue One where it's like,
Right.
him and his so-called friend was about to escape. It's like, yo,
And
I
shoot
need to
you in the
escape.
back.
It's like,
Yeah.
nah, block up, shoot you in the
Yeah.
back, bro.
Yeah.
Every man
Right.
for himself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we see that he well, typical thing with these Star Wars shows these days, but he's a blue collar man, you know what I mean? So he
Right.
working on the ground and all that kind of stuff, right? So but his friends are aware of his ancestry, right? Because apparently he is part of this
Right.
pretty much a tribe actually, which I thought was really interesting.
Right.
Part
So
of this tribe.
there's a big mystery at the heart of this. Like what's so important about this tribe and why it is they would hide this information of him
Right.
being he was effectively adopted by two rebellion types now. They
Right.
fight in the Empire for a long time, long before they meet him before he's born, presumably. And yeah. So it's all of that. Yeah, go ahead.
Right, essentially. And right, well, the name of the planet is Canary, right? So what this show actually surprised me with, right, is like establishing, because with true Star Wars, the thing that every single planet or every single society is advanced, right? But
Right.
here's like not really, right? They are, well, I don't want to say like ancient or prehistoric or whatnot, like, but they don't know anything about flying ships or lasers or all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
So
That's the
through
thing.
some
Yeah.
circumstances, they exposed to this, right? This basically through the
It's a
downing of this particular ship,
Right. It's a
right?
kind of isolated. Oh, well, let's call these tribes. Basically, it's modern isolated tribes. That non-contact. I forget the term for it.
Or oh gosh, I know what you talk about, but
Yeah.
nah,
But
something like oh gosh, like tribes you see in the Amazon forest,
still,
something
right.
like along that line,
And
right?
you're not supposed to contact them or not as little contact as possible.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But essentially, I'm not too sure what is the big deal with them, right? But yeah,
Right.
because he is from that planet, that makes him like public enemy number one, right? So we have this particular inspector by the name of Cyril Khan, right? And
Right.
he
Yeah.
actually is working for what we call the Preox Moriana Authority, right? So
Yeah.
this is essentially the same company, if you want to call it, like a conglomerate, if you will, where these two guys work, where the two victims, right?
Right. Right.
So he is like hell bent now on finding this guy, right? And then one thing leads to the next, and well, pretty much our hero ends up running into a particular member of the resistance, who is played by none other than Stellan Skarsgård. I
Yeah.
didn't even know he was going to be in this, but he did it. So I was,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is where the story begins. This is where again our hero ends up joining the rebellion, and he learns a lot more about the people who want to fight back against the Empire. And I'll stop there, right?
Right.
So that's what I give my thoughts here before you jump in, right? So I have to give this as a first impression, right? Because basically what we got 3 episodes, right? We got the first
Right.
3 one time, right? So I'm just going off of what I saw, right? And I know that there's about how much, like 9 more episodes again, right? So we have a full season to go, right?
Right.
So getting the good out of the way, right? Very, very, very well shot, though, I must say, though. And
Yeah.
what I really particularly love is how different stylistically and tonally. It feels from everything that we've seen in the movies and the TV shows too. It feels totally different. There's points where, like, even in the early stuff in Moriana, I believe the name of the planet is, right, where I swear I was watching Blade Runner. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It just
Exactly.
felt like that. It just
Yeah.
felt like I was watching something really, like, dystopian, really, really gritty and whatnot, right? And yeah, it totally works, man. I love just the visual aesthetic of it and how it looks and whatnot, right? Secondly, the characterization. There's a lot of emphasis put on characters here. They feel a lot more real in quotes. So what I mean is that
Yeah.
typically when it comes to Star Wars TV shows, the certain archetypes, right? And the characters will play them to a T, right? Here they feel like lived in characters in this world here, like the normal average person who aren't going into starships and whatever, going into hyperspace or whatnot and fighting people. They just on the ground and they just surviving, right? And even credit too for the dialogue as well too. It feels more realistic as well to compare to what we
Yeah.
saw before. Feels
Right.
very, very, very lived in, right? Acting is pretty decent as well. As well, especially from Diego Luna who plays Caston, right? I love how he's always reserved. You know what I mean? There's always something about him. He always has some kind of plan. You know what I mean? Like in case in point, he has this particular item that he wants to sell, and he
Yeah.
wants to use that to get out of the planet because he already knows that he's on the run. Because of what he did and all that kind of stuff, right? Um, I also appreciated the little flashback scenes and whatnot, right? I love
Right.
how they don't really give you too much information, but they kind of give you enough to be like, okay, I understand how somebody like he would end up getting roped into this whole battle, you know what I mean, between good and evil, right? Because, yeah, basically he was just there with his tribesmen and whatnot, minding his own business, and boom, he ends up in this, right? In more ways than one, right? Here's the gripe I have with this, though. This is like my major gripe with this, though. Because, yeah, these first 3 episodes start off good, eh?
Right.
But what really holds us back though is that pacing. But
Right.
I felt the pacing really, really
What I would
held things
say.
back to the
So
point that just quickly to the point that we got 3 episodes of this thread. You could have told that entire story, given us conflict and all that kind of stuff, in 2. We could have gotten that in 2 episodes.
right.
It felt really stretched out with this 3 episode run, man.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I felt with it as well. That's my only real downside with it. To be honest, episode 2 could have get cut out entirely, and they could have chopped up some parts in that and put some of that in episode 1 and some of that in episode 3. That's how it felt, and make episode 1 3 a little longer.
Yes.
But that's about it though. Like everything else, I was going to straight up say it. I kind of loved it as it was. It's more, and to me, some people don't really mind that as a pacing issue. Like I know some people don't really mind the pacing. I thought, it was decent enough as is. But yeah, if it was up to me, I would make the call of cutting out episode 2 and editing that a little differently. To be honest.
I just felt that we could have gotten to the conflict pretty quickly, like especially in episode 1. You know what I mean? Because honestly, because I was going in not really knowing what to expect from this show. When the first episode ended, I was like, okay, like, all right, that's it. And then the next episode kicks in, like, all right, the story continuing. And then, well, when 3 kicks in, it's like, oh, right. That's what we wanted to see initially, right?
Yeah.
Now, I understand they could pack all that into 1 episode. And that's saying they could have put out a hour and a half episode. That wouldn't make any sense, right? But still, but you just really felt that pace, but that slow pace, especially in the first 2, but
Yeah, no, I don't know. I know I'm on halfway on that. Like I understand where you're coming from, but it didn't bother me too much because it was all about just character stuff and building stuff and just you just need to learn about this character and learn about that character and whatnot and just Andor's attitude towards stuff because he's like Han Solo but way less charismatic, right? That's what he is, right? And a lot more grimy. And you have to build that up with all these little side characters we see in him moving around. And I agree. You could have paced it out a little better. As I said, for me, episode 2 is what you could have chopped up and have that feed into other directions. That's about it. So you would have a slightly longer episode 1 and episode quote unquote 3, but it really would have been the episode 2, and then that you would have got to that final point much quicker. And that's yeah. But I get where you're coming.
Another good I want to mention here quickly is the antagonist, right? I don't want to call him a villain. I just want to call him an antagonist, right?
Right.
Yeah, basically he's just a company man who just know that, all right, I know that what I have to do here is right. We have to find these individuals the individual who killed these guys. I don't know why my boss trying to cover it up and make stories. Right. I need to find this person. So I like that he more or less pushing his co-workers, if you want to call them that, just to buck up and do what they had to do now, you know what I mean?
Right.
But everybody else is like, well, we don't really know, or at least some of them kind of know what the big deal is. Other people is just like, well, all right, we don't know. But this guy like real adamant about finding this guy, John. I like
Right.
that,
Right.
especially how it comes together in the third episode.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right about all of that because again, I'll just get again to my thing. So, yeah,
Yeah, sure, sure.
I've been on people saying that Rogue One is pound for pound my personal favorite of the Disney era Star Wars material. For the simple reason of we finally get to see the wars part of it. Like usually with wars, you have the glorified people, right? So it's not only Star Wars has always been about either outright magical people or royalty, right? And the whole underground operations of everything is what more people will like or want to see, the everyman aspect of it now. The bomb throwers and the saboteurs and all the grimy people who got to do all sort of grimy shit, in the nature of war. And I really like they get into that, just this general fight against, well, for lack of a better term, the fascism, right? And how to really fight fascism, sorry to say, in the dailies is to just be grimy as fuck, sorry. And that's what this does. That's what this does really, really, really well. And well, they have a character in this who is the epitome of the griminess. That hopefully we're gonna spend some time with and be a little clearer, even though you kind of gone off the deep end in the narrative. By the time of Rogue One, this is Saw Gerrera, right?
Yes,
and I'm glad that
I would love to. I want to see how you're gonna come into the show here, man. I can't
exactly. Yeah, and they're making it work for what it is. So it's like I can't be mad at it in that sense. But yeah, so for this, I really thought it did a really good job of just setting up the griminess. Now, like him as a person, he just intuitively understands that this is how you treat the Empire and how you think about the Empire. And there's a point in time in the narrative when the Empire really riding high, right? They really feel unstoppable. Everything is about the fascism, and they get into like all these little small little cool things about it that make it work. That's why like again the character what's his name again, the company man who just all about ideology and thing, and then the little side buddy who's like a real fascist and real bootlicker. They get into that. Like I like that.
Yes.
This little character that everybody's great at it in terms of the acting. And they're making it work in terms of like Musk is the guy's name, right? And they make it work in that sense. And then they're leaning into the aspects of Rogue One that really work for me, right? Production is really excellent and feels very lived in. It feels like Southeast London. That's what make it kind of funny. Like because it at times it feels like a Guy Ritchie film. Like you're watching Guy Ritchie. Kind of Guy Ritchie.
I know what you mean. Yeah, like the common man, but he in some grimy shit. I know you're talking about.
Yeah. Exactly. And then what they make it work is all the payoff double acts work great. Like so, Andor and Rael. That is right. That is what do you call him? Skarsgård.
Oh, yes.
They're great together. Right.
Yes. Moments with them in episode 3. Love them.
Yeah. And then Khan and Musk, great double act. The two of them again. This kind of bootlicky performative nature of the villains, right? They're just two assholes. But here he is all about his righteousness, the moral righteousness of catching a criminal. And like, yeah, but bro, you're a company man. You're no stormtrooper or nothing.
At points him just kind of walking like, like people like there's a great scene involving like the townspeople more or less signaling that these guys are there, and he just walking like, oh, they're just trying to scare us. Let me just go.
Yeah, exactly. That is a sheer like cluelessness and arrogance now and complacency that makes it work. And because they're basically the Paul Blart of the Star Wars universe now. That
will make it Paul Blart.
Yeah, exactly. It's small cops. That's what they are. It's just these idiots that but they make it work because they still have force on their side, right? And I say this all this little small stuff is how the fascism does work. It's not these soldiers always in the streets. It's the little common man who think he could beat up on people and think he could just be the boss of people. It's that type of person. No? That's why it works. That's why Musk is gonna be. He's like the highlight of the show for me so far. Because like this dude just exactly nailed the problem, though. Because he's like such a nobody, but he had a show, quote unquote, show them who's boss. That bullshit now. As I said, I agree that I felt the intro could have been 2 episodes instead of 3, but I thought it was mostly fine as this because all the slow stuff was just building up the other characters, right? I think all the other characters I really liked. We're not sure if we're gonna have more of them in the storyline, but I really like his adoptive mother. She was good. I forget her name, but the girlfriend. Not the girlfriend.
Bix.
Sorry, the other guy. Right. Yeah, Bix. She's good as well. And then the whole reveal about her, presumable not husband, but her fiance, sell them out now. Again, some real Nazi, little small shit like that now. Yeah, that is how they used to move. Like Israel, real coward shit like that. I like that. And then he ended up getting gunned down because he didn't think that they would have shoot him now. To get that over, I on them side now. And he get that. I like what they do with that in that first episode. And I think the main thing is just, again, real sets. Everything felt real and lived in. No CG bullshit. Mm-hmm. No thing. If the CG there, you ain't really notice it. It's not there. And yeah, I'm gonna straight up say it. This is kind of what Boba Fett should have been. Sorry. Like
I agree.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking how Boba Fett, they just kind of half-ass Boba Fett now. Like, look, I don't hate Boba Fett, but boy, they could really do more with Boba Fett. And another thing too, no Tatooine. Kind of fucking sick of Tatooine, right?
Boy.
Yeah, no Tatooine. It's a world. They're doing what they're doing. Grimy ass shit from the grimy aspects of Rogue One, and they're making it work. And yeah, I actually really like in a while, I'm actually excited to watch a Star Wars show now. Whenever Wednesday coming up, I'll actually make the effort to wake up early in the morning because I wake up early anyway. But I can wake up and watch Star Wars. I'm like, yeah, it's vibes. I so far really like this. I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did, but they're nailing it. And it's shocking that because it's not like Rogue One is some massive hit or anything like that, or Diego Luna is some household name or anything like that. But yeah, he's just a solid actor. He works as a decent lead, and he just making it work as it is. Yeah. So far, I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, well, for me, as I said, it's a first impression. Because of that piece, and like there's still a ways to go for me enjoying this, right. But I just have a feeling that this might end up being like the best Star Wars show that we get this year, man. So I just can't wait for these subsequent episodes to go, man. So slow start, but I have a feeling that this is already shaping up to be, a big hit, man. And I just includes that. Just really curious to see how the Star Wars, universe of fans, if you will, respond to this. Cause I know it has some diehard fans who just kind of fed up of the generic formula of the previous shows. Then of course you'll blame it on Disney and all that kind of stuff, right? But I have a feeling that there will be some people who might just look at this and find it's like a little too real, like maybe they'll try a little too hard. Case in point, like for the first time ever I hear characters say like what the hell and shit. Like I never heard that before in a Star Wars show, right? I appreciate that. I appreciate that they trying to be as realistic as possible, right? But now I'm wondering if there will be I have a feeling there'll be some people who might just find like, all right, so now took all these decades to bring us a show like this, or they're trying way too hard now. Right. I have a feeling they'll have people who will look down on a show like that.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of great in this, man. I could sense it.
I mean, I've always been halfway on the material of like, look, Star Wars could be as goofy as possible. I don't really mind that. My attitude is that you have to still feel into the world, as they say. The original Star Wars, balances reasonably well. The original trilogy. That's why I don't really get into these dumb debates about what should be too dark. And I could understand somebody complaining that it might be a little too serious business and too dark. You're trying to Nolanize it or Man of Steel it, that kind of thing.
I like that too. Yeah, Nolanize it. Yeah.
Right. I mean, maybe I could understand why you might think like that. Maybe, but to me, I just dig in it for what it is. Like again, it's still goofy space stuff, right? But yeah, my attitude is that once you gotta tell a good story, and this seems like a decent story so far. And you gotta make that work as it is. So that's about it.
All right, nice.